welcome to the Strategic Success Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney and Fricke. Thanks for tuning in. So Chris, welcome to the Strategic Success Podcast. I'm glad to have you, so let's jump on into it. So explain to folks, who you are, where are you based out of, and what do you focus on in real estate?
Yeah, my name's Chris Johnsen. I'm actually out of the North Shore of New Orleans. I'm in Pearl River.
Mhm.
I'm a land investor. I buy and sell land. I do a little bit of subdividing. I do some owner financing of land, and I have a few rentals as well.
Yeah. So now, um, what were you doing before real estate? Like, what was your background?
Yeah, so I was an electrician for 15 years, and I worked for a big electrical company for 12 years, and then I started my own electrical business, and it was just me and a helper for about 3 years, and I was doing pretty good with it. I was probably making 100,000 a year, plus some cash in construction business, which
Sure.
was nice. Um, so I did that for about 3 years before I kind of fell backwards into land investing.
Well, before you tell me how you fell backwards into it, I mean, look, people often talk about the trades, right? Like there's a large need for it. But I mean, it's also demanding, building and starting a business is also demanding, all of those things. What do you mean you fell backwards into land?
I agree with you. I think trades are a great way to make a, a lot of money. I mean, you can just straight out of high school get into a trade, pretty much master it in 5 to 7 years, and be making really good money or start your own business. So I really think that's a good way to get started. Um, the way I fell backwards into the land business is I was working. I had a young child at the time. I was working on my own business, my electrical business, and I had a lot next to my house that came up that was vacant, and I knew that I needed to buy it before somebody built a house next to me, and then I had to live
Okay.
next to a person.
Like you just wanted space. Like,
Yeah,
one time I think it was my dad who said that land's the best medicine for the headache of a neighbor, right? Like, I mean, we see what happens when people are right on top of each other,
yeah.
you know. Yeah.
No, that's exactly. I just wanted. I mean, I ended up buying it. I ended up using the assessor's website to figure out who owned it. Got in touch with that lady, negotiated with her all off market, and bought it from her. And like that kind of opened my eyes to the possibility. Plus, a few weeks later, after I purchased it, somebody approached me and offered me almost twice as much as what I paid for it. So I told them no because I didn't want to live next to anybody. But
Were they like a builder wanting to build or like a homeowner wanting to build their own
I
property
didn't even
house?
ask.
Yeah.
I think it might have just been a somebody looking to possibly build and live back there, but I'm not sure. But that kind of sparked the idea of, I wonder if I could do that again.
Yeah.
So for the next probably 2 months, I would get on the assessor website in Pearl River County, and I would write down. I would click on different parcels that looked vacant, and I'd write them down in a notebook. And then I would go Google these people and try to find a phone number or email or some way to get in touch with them. And I probably did that for 6 weeks before I found a 6 acre piece of property in Picayune, Mississippi, that I bought off market for $15,000. I listed it for 40, and then had a $38,000 offer like a week later. So I made over $20,000 on that little flip, and realized that's a ton of electrical work you have to do to make 20 grand.
Yeah. It I am all for working hard, but someone once said that real estate is a thinking man's game. Like at the end of the day, I'd much rather think long and hard and earn my money that way versus to work a long day out in the sun or whatever.
That's been the biggest transition for me, because it used to be, you wake up early, you immediately get started organizing your stuff, getting the truck loaded. Like, you're not making money unless you're on the job doing the work. So it's like a total mind shift for me to be able to just sit down in the morning, like clear my mind, figure out the things I need to do that aren't physical labor. And that took a long time for me to transition into that. I've only been doing land for 2 years. So I feel like I'm just catching my stride.
Yeah. Well, so you have, obviously you have the house that you own, but you said you have rentals, house rentals. You know, what was why why land over houses? A lot of people do prefer houses, for various reasons, but like were you were you pursuing houses and then said, "Wait, this land thing is different," or what does that look like?
So I was always pretty interested in real estate. I used to listen to all the Bigger Pockets podcast, and that was 10 years ago before I did anything. Um, but I was always just too scared to kind of make the jump into it. Um, I started working with my two cousins. We formed a partnership, and we started a commercial pressure washing business
Sure.
to fund some real estate purchases, and we did that. We bought a little mobile home that we bought for 40, and um, it was cash flowing maybe $600 a month at one point, and doing pretty well. And then we bought another house, renovated it, fixed it up, and rented that one too. But that was a lot of weekends of us doing, you
Yeah.
know, me and my cousins. I mean, my cousins probably make over 100 grand a year at their W-2s, and we're painting walls on the weekend when we all
Sure.
have kids at home. So it's like I just didn't want to do that anymore.
I get that. And it's like, and a lot of people, a lot of times they start off with like the sweat equity, right? But after a certain point, it's like you're writing a check, whether
Yes.
you're physically writing it or not, like whether you're actually writing a check to pay someone or you're just writing a check with your time and your effort.
Yeah.
And and it goes to remind me of a story with a guy who he it I mean Benjamin, it was in the book with Dr. Benjamin Hardy, which was Who Not How. And it was the idea of like some people just try to figure out the how part, but really they just need to find the right who.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it was the idea of this one guy who was highly skilled in certain things, but he just got so frugal or whatever. And he was out trying to fix something on his roof and he fell off and got seriously hurt.
Yeah.
But it was just because he was trying to save a few bucks, right? And so a lot of people, they're like, "Hey, let's go get the sweat equity part," but then they don't also realize like what are they exchanging? Sometimes it's they actually get hurt. Sometimes it's they're taken away from family,
Yeah.
family time, right? And so you had a young family that's still growing, right? And so talk to me about with land, you did that first deal next to your house. That opens up the door for you. You do that next deal over in Picayune, right? The
Right.
6 acres. Um, so at that point, what happened after that one? Where you're like, what happened after that?
So after I showed my wife the check for $20,000, which made it a lot more real because I was I was still running my electrical business, and I would work from, I don't know, 6 in the morning to 2:30 or something. I'd come home, I'd play with my 6-month-old baby, and then I'd go back out to the office and I would start making these phone calls or sending text messages looking for land. Um, I did the first deal, and then I kind of did the same thing. I would work maybe 6 hours of electrical a day, and then I would come home and like dive deep into land. And I did probably two more deals that were similar to that first deal,
Mhm.
maybe $10,000 to $20,000 profit range. And after that third one, I told my wife, like, I'm shutting the electrical business now. Like I've already made 50, $60,000, and it's been 3 months. So um, pretty much closed the doors on that, and then went full time in the land. And I started doing full time like text messaging campaigns. So this was before they kind of cracked down on the regulation of text messaging.
Mhm.
But
I remember the Wawa West days. Yeah,
yeah,
where
yeah,
you
and it
could.
was awesome. I was doing really well. I think that first year, I had started in. I started researching in like January, February of 2022, and then by March I had my first deal. By April I had those three deals.
So
Like
you were getting momentum.
yes,
And at the end of the day, that momentum, I mean, it also shows you, I mean, you're showing the check to your wife, but you're also saying, like, hey, this actually, there's proof of concept here.
yeah.
Like, this works. Now, at that point, were you mostly just wholesaling them, but getting them under contract and then, selling that contract to someone else? Or were you doing other exit strategies too at that point?
So I was very limited in my knowledge on those first couple. I was buying it. I used $15,000 out of my savings account to buy that first one, turn that into 38 or
So
whatever it
you were
was.
taking, so you were taking
I
ownership
was
and then turning around
selling it.
and selling it. Okay,
And same thing, I bought those next two for cash with that 38,000 and
sure.
sold those both off.
So
And
you were
then
just funneling the profits back into the business so you could buy more.
and that worked till about the fifth deal, and I realized I'm out of money. So
Yeah.
that's when I listened to a lot of land investing podcasts.
Mhm.
Ari Tipster is a good one for anybody out there that's looking for land advice.
Sure.
Um,
You had an episode on that one. I remember you and I had connected a few times over the years, but then when I think we really got reconnected was when I heard you on that one.
yeah,
And I was like, "Hey man, like, hey, it's been a minute. How's
yeah,
it going?" Yeah.
yeah. That's Seth Williams over there. He's a great guy, and he's got great content for anybody interested in land. Um,
So in the beginning you were self-funding basically through your savings, your profits,
yeah.
to the purchase.
Mhm.
Um, and then, let's talk about some other exit strategies you've done with land. So that one you're flipping, right?
Yeah,
So you're using money, regardless of the source, you're
right.
purchasing and then you're reselling. What other type of strategies have you done with land?
Yeah, it forced me to find different strategies. After that fifth
Sure.
one, I was out of money, so I heard a podcast episode about double closings and
Sure.
assignments. So I don't assign many contracts. I do it more now than I did at first, but I would start double closing on stuff. So I'd put something under contract at 20, find an in buyer for 35, and double close and make that $15,000. They just write me a check for the difference.
Mhm.
And it used to be I didn't even have to bring a check to the closing. They would just cut me a check for the difference, and I'd sign the two documents and walk out of there. Lately, they've been making me fund that original purchase, which isn't a big deal. I could either find private money or self fund it.
Mhm.
But it's still basically a double close. I'm getting that money back within a day or two.
Yeah. But whenever you double close, you are, taking title briefly
Yeah,
for that one day. Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
for anybody who ends up doing that, definitely still buy the title insurance because I thought that I got in trouble by
Well, you have
not
a
buying it.
story from this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of not a lot, but I have a few horror stories. But I think I've done about 100 deals, and about three or four of them have gone uh,
Caught
not
you
as
off guard.
not as
Yeah.
planned. Yeah.
Okay. So what about the title insurance part? So, and this is important because a lot of people don't, because they think, well, my end buyers might be buying it,
Yep.
especially well, actually in land, I don't know how often people buy it with land, but like with houses, people buy it, right? And so when you do an assignment, there's no real risk in the sense of because you're not taking title yourself, but in a double close, you're taking title briefly, and you're taking title, but you'll be going in public record, all that, but at the same time, it'll be double closing to another third party that same day. And so, what do you mean? Tell us about the story with the title, like an example of why the title insurance was important on a double close.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was important because I owned it for like 24 hours. So like what's going to happen in that brief time between I get the title opinion, the assurance that the title's clear from the title company, I
Yep.
own it for 24 hours and then somebody else takes it over and it's gone
Yeah.
forever, or I thought so. But yeah, so last year I bought like 16 acres in Mississippi somewhere. Um, I think I bought for maybe 15, sold for 35-ish on owner financing. So I got like $7,500 down. And then the note was for maybe 6 years at, I can't remember the numbers, maybe $600 a month or something. Um,
Mhm.
they paid on it fine for a year and a half. They went to sell the property and realized there's a title issue. The person who signed it, who sold it to me, forged some documents.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, forged some documents uh, of some sort of succession from his mom, and there were supposed to be some other family members involved in this sale, and I don't know how he did it.
So basically, he like boxed out the other heirs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
somehow the title company didn't catch it, which was a little bit aggravating. But the end buyer ended up suing me, which made me have to sue him, and I don't know what's going to happen. That's been going on for 6 months. I had to give a $5,000 um,
Retainer
retainer,
to an attorney.
and then I see him eat away at that every month for checking emails or making phone calls and it. But if that's all it cost me is $5,000, I would not be that upset. I think eventually I might have to buy the property back from these people,
Mhm.
but then I'm
Are they still making payments, and are they still?
they stopped.
Mhm. Interesting. And so when someone stops, it's like that property is still in limbo. It's not making money.
Yep.
It's definitely costing money. Not just the attorney costs, but like I mean, insure. No, I don't know if you insure, but like property taxes,
Yeah.
you know, like stuff like that.
And I haven't been made whole on that property yet. I was
Sure.
just about to be, start actually making money on that property because I went like 7 grand in the hole, but I'll have made that back in a year.
Yeah. So, yeah, so that I mean, lesson learned, right? And and that title insurance is, it's relative to the purchase price, right? So if it's a lower purchase price, title insurance can be really,
It's so cheap. It's
yeah,
like
it's like,
150
it's like-
bucks.
and it's insurance that's a one-time cost
Yeah.
versus like, home insurance, which is yearly or whatever. And so then you've got, um, and it's one of those things where I think a lot of people, I think that's a great gem that people should get if they're going to double close, especially with land. But I mean, let's be real, it matters with houses too, that they should have title insurance because hey, what if there's some flaw, like
Yeah.
there's something. Look, like I've had plenty of sketchy sellers over the years, or it could be something unintentional, that they didn't know existed, that they, whatever that may look like.
Yeah.
Do you have any recourse against the seller? Do you think that it'll extend to that degree where, you know, you can go after the seller?
I would imagine he spent that money a long time ago. So I don't
Mhm.
know what am I going to go after him. He probably didn't have any money anyway. I mean, I'm going to do whatever the attorney says I should do.
Yeah.
Uh, but I don't know. We're just kind of sitting tight right now. I don't even know if the end buyer has a real case against me. I gave him a general warranty deed and he got title insurance. So I don't know. They're not suing the title insurance for some reason. They're suing me, which I don't know. It's just kind of a mess.
Yeah, that's weird because like them suing you is like you like as if you knew about it.
Yeah.
Title insurance is for the actual title, policy that goes for. I mean, that's what the title company gives. They give the insurance that like basically backs their work.
Yep.
And it's their work. It's almost like they should sue the title company and their work, right? And
Yeah.
have you do you still use the title company?
I don't actually.
I
Kind
was,
of because of that reason.
yeah, that
We won't
they
say any names.
no, yeah, look, that's understandable. I mean, sometimes it's an honest human mistake,
Yeah.
right?
No,
Like,
I don't think anybody could have. It was just that guy. I mean, he screwed a lot of people, but
well,
I
and
was a little
sometimes
bit.
con men are just gonna con, right? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like some of them are actually good at it.
But I think I've closed probably 80 deals with this one title company, and that's all of those are buy, and then at least half of them are sale. Through that title company. So that's like 120 transactions that they've done just for me. So that's why I was a little bit upset when they didn't kind of go to bat for me.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, so that is tough when you have an established relationship and then they're like not willing to say, hey, let's immediately start a policy. Let us contact the buyer and have them start a policy or whatever
Yeah.
claim. Um, but not everyone operates the same way. So let's talk through. Okay, so you've talked through flipping. So you buy, take title, and then you resell. We talked about assignments, so wholesaling. So whether it's an assignment, a double close. You've also talked about how you've bought stuff and you've owner financed it to people.
Hmm.
What are some other exit strategies you've done with land?
Yeah. So just recently, within the last year, I've done 3 different subdivides. So
Can you explain what
uh,
that is for people? Like what's subdividing?
sure, they're all minor subdivisions. There's major subdivisions and you have minor subdivisions. Minor subdivisions is something like you buy 100 acres and you split it into 5 20-acre parcels and you sell them off individually. That only works usually when you have a good amount of road frontage and you can cut it where it makes sense for 5 different home sites or
Yeah.
um,
Where those 20 would be equal in some way
yeah.
or something like that, where there's access, it's not like cutting some of them off, yeah.
Yeah, so you might be able to buy that 100 acres for 200,000, and you chop them up into 520s and you sell them off instead of 2,000 an acre that you bought for, you can sell it off for 4,000 an acre and kind of double your money. And what I've been doing lately is I'll sell off just enough of those pieces to pay myself back to make myself whole, and then I'll owner finance the last couple pieces off just to kind of push out that income so I'm not taking that huge hit right up front. And I don't need all that income right now. I had my note portfolio was about $2,500 a month coming into this year, and my goal is to have at least 10,000 a month by the end of the year. And I think I'm at like 7 right now, so
So
I'll
that's
be
when
there.
you own or finance stuff, and it's like that's what people's obligations are to pay you every month. And so you started at 2,500, you're at 7,000 a month,
Yes,
and you want to get it up to 10,
right.
to where every month you've got 10 grand coming in
Yeah,
from people who are paying you. And then let's kind of talk about this because I think that this is one of the best ways people can actually get cash flow better than houses. Because with houses, you've got, I mean, like the insurance crisis with houses right now is crazy in Louisiana,
yeah,
right? But then also with this heat, ACs are busting left and right.
yeah.
I mean, you're an electrician, you know what I'm talking about, like the big costs, roofs, whatever that looks like. So, um, what are your thoughts on a note portfolio? What does that do for you?
Yeah, so if I had even where it's at now, $7,000 a month pretty much covers all of my cost that I have right now. So,
So, like your cost for your business or cost for your personal?
uh, almost both. I
Mhm.
I still do a lot of active flipping,
Mhm.
but yeah, it covers. I think my marketing is maybe $3,500 a month, and then I have 2 employees, part-time employees. I have an assistant, and then I have an acquisitions manager,
Mhm.
and they're about 700 a week or so. Um, Plus, I give them a bonus. I give them a percentage of the profits every quarter. Um, what was the original question?
Yeah, but like it's talking about how does that the note portfolio serve you. So it's
Yeah,
like, hey, regardless if you close deals this month, you've got those past deals performing, right?
yeah,
Like they're because I mean, in this business, it can be very cyclical. You can have feast or famine. Some months can be, you're making really great because the deals are flowing and closing. But then some months you're like, man, every deal's trying to die. We're trying to, CPR all of them,
yes,
or they're all getting pushed to next month.
yeah,
So, I mean, I could see how a note portfolio could really help.
yeah. It helps me kind of get my head above water and see where I'm going rather than being so worried about how am I going to pay bills or
Mhm.
like I really need this deal to close. It just provides a little more comfort for me to where I'm not scrounging to pay my bills. I really think that helps me uh, with my overall direction of my business. So if I can get it up to $10,000, I think uh, I'll really do well next year because I want to focus on some bigger things, and I just can't do that when I'm trying to get these little flips together so I can make $10,000 to $12,000 and just
Well, and the hard
feed my
part,
family.
well, the hard part with, I've got another friend, Chris. He talks about fast, medium, slow money, and I think he has a point there where it's like, getting into some of those bigger things, right? Like maybe and we'll talk more about that here,
Yeah.
but like stuff that takes time.
Hmm.
Well, you got to be able to have food on the table today while you're waiting for the thing. The thing that takes time might make more money, might have, but so what are, so you're talking about subdividing, you know, um, in your note portfolio and growing those. And I do want to talk about some of the bigger things you want to get into here in a little bit, but let's kind of break down with land, what are some of the tools and resources that you use pretty frequently? Um, and to be able to, to assess deals.
Yeah. I'll kind of go through the whole process. So I have an acquisitions manager. We do all cold calling right now.
Okay.
I went from text messaging to cold calling. I use a service. I have 2 40-hour a week cold callers that I think it costs me 35 or $3,600 a month for them.
Yeah.
Um, and they're managed by people, and they actually do a pretty good job. Um, so I like cold calling because I feel like it's a different demographic of people who are answering these phone calls versus text messaging. It was almost always a younger uh, seller avatar that I was reaching with text.
Okay.
Cold calling, it's almost always an older
Okay.
person. Um, so that's why we're doing cold calling. And so the leads will trickle in throughout the week. The cold call company will upload them to our CRM. my acquisitions manager will call them and make like just reach out, introduce himself, build a relationship a little bit, and we'll always ask like, can we go check out the property? Is it okay to for us to have somebody go walk the property and,
Yeah.
and look at it?
Like getting permission to be on their property. That's
Yes,
important.
yeah, and then so from there, Jake, my acquisitions manager, he'll move it down the pipeline. It'll ding me saying, create an offer. So I'll get on Land ID, which is a program that I use for land due diligence, and it Land ID is awesome. It does,
You've
you
sent
know,
me many maps through them.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
great. Parcel data, flood maps, wetlands, contour lines, city limits, school zones, everything you could think of, water, power, sewage.
So it's an interactive map,
Yes.
kind of like a lot of municipalities and parishes and counties. They have those GIS, like
Mhm.
the geographical information systems.
Yep.
I think that's what it's called. They've got it's kind of like that, but more,
Yep.
right? And it allows you that interactive map to like really look at some of the details with the property. And that land ID, like again, I think it's great. Look, there's a lot of things that I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if I ever told you this. So I bought a property and I didn't fully do due diligence on it. And I was like, hey, I mean, like it sounds like a great deal.
Yeah.
And I bought it. And then afterwards I looked on land ID, I was like, oh, probably should have bought that, or I should have bought it for a lot less than I bought it for.
Wetlands.
Some of it was wetlands, yeah, because there was a creek on the side of the property, and so nothing. But at the end of the day, so tell me more about some of your tools, and then I want to pick your brain on due diligence for land, because I think a lot of house people don't know that there's some additional sides to it. So you're using land ID. Is that one of the first things you go take a look at?
Yes. Um, yeah, Land ID is just good because it's kind of everything in one. You don't have to go to the GIS map and then go over to LA flood maps and then go over to whatever Corps of Engineers for the wetlands, or it's just all kind of there. I also use Google Earth a lot.
Okay.
I know I was talking to you about this earlier, but you may not know this, but on Google Earth, you can, on your computer, if you click the date at the bottom left hand of the screen, you can walk back through the years and kind of see.
Yeah. Specifically, when you're doing that,
Yeah.
what are you looking for?
Yeah, so that depends on what kind of property I'm buying, but I mostly focus on larger rural acreage, hunting tracts, large home sites.
So
So
tens or hundreds of acres?
yeah, 10 minimum,
Yeah.
10 and up.
Okay.
I try not to cap it. I used to try to stick to 10 to 50 because I just had a limiting belief that I couldn't, do anything with land that was bigger than that, but that was silly. Um,
Sure.
so
So when you're looking, let's just say at 100 acres, and you go on Google Earth and you
yep.
start playing with that time feature and you start going back a few years, what are you looking for?
Yeah, so sometimes timber is very important on a track like that. So um, sometimes the sellers will tell me, "Oh yeah, that timber's 30 years old. We haven't had it cut since 1991 or whatever it is." So I can actually get on Google Earth and walk back through the years and make sure they're telling the truth. And
Yeah.
if it turns out they actually cut it in 2008, then I know that that it's only
Either
15 years old or whatever it is.
and so part of that is so you're going through it and you can see all of a sudden a whole bunch of trees are down,
Yep.
right? Like a whole area is missing. Anything else that you can kind of tell from that Google Earth?
Yeah, you can see if there was homes on the property at one time, if there was like
Yep, that's
piles of garbage that trees have grown over and you can't even see it anymore. So that's something you could look at.
like a landfill of
Yeah,
something.
you
Yeah.
never know.
Okay. Well, because I mean, think about it. People go and dump stuff on land all the
Yes.
time, like
Yep.
tires, furniture, all that. What? So you're using Google Earth. You're using Land ID. Any other tools or even team members that you are leaning on to be able to look into these deals that you're doing?
Yeah. A couple tools. When I comp property,
Mm.
Land Watch and Land Search both are good for comping. Land Watch is really good. Um, they give you sold prices, so that's really good for comping. And then Land Search is almost like the Zillow of land, where it will give you a map and show you everything that's for sale. So you can, if I buy something in Ackerman, Mississippi, I can go to Land Search and look around Ackerman and see exactly what's for sale in that area. And like I like to be 85%, 80 to 85% I'd like to sell for 80 to 85% of what everything
So
else
you
is.
need to get it down below that.
Yes. So that
Yeah.
kind of gives me what I should be selling for, and then Land Watch gives me what stuff is actually sold for.
Well, and so then another part of that though too is most houses are often like, this house is selling for $100 a square foot, right? Or a house is for sale or for 100 a square foot.
Yeah.
But you're dealing in per acre, right? Like that's how you generally look at land.
Yeah. So
Because you're
it's
not dealing with infill lots. Like, yeah, the one, like you're mostly dealing with minimum 10 acres.
nowadays, yeah. I did buy, I have bought some smaller lots in that first year, but I don't, there's just not enough meat on the bone. There's some people that can, there's some residential 1 acre lots that go for 150,000, and
Yeah.
maybe you can get that for 90 and sell it for 150, but that's just not my strategy.
Well,
Uh,
and I did a ton. Like there was years where I went and I just went in front of builders
yes.
and I just went and found all the off-market deals and then I would sell them to the builders.
Yeah.
And there was a time where I probably did 2 dozen deals, maybe more, with just a few builders in certain neighborhoods where they were all building in, especially in the 19 and 20 and 21 when like people were building like
Yeah.
crazy. It was just, I mean, it was just base hits for me. It was
Mhm.
easy,
Yeah.
and so talk to me about um, any other tools you want to mention. So you've got the comping sites and stuff like that, or any other team members you want to mention that have been critical for your, with land.
Yeah. So I work with a lot of real estate agents. Um, I've paid a lot of commissions for people bringing me buyers for some of my off-market properties, and then I've also made some good friends with real estate agents who have become partners of mine. That we do deals together now, and that's been huge. And surveyors
Yeah.
too. It's awesome to have a good surveyor, because I don't want to sit down and read a county's.
Legal description
Yeah,
of
I can't do that. My brain just bogs
yeah,
down.
like the meets and bounds and go west 10 meters and
Yeah.
whatever. So another big thing here is when it comes to agents, I guess a question here is when it comes to agents, when it comes to land, will any agent work or like, agents that are normally dealing in houses? What are your thoughts on this? I see you smiling.
Yeah. You definitely want to find an agent who specializes in land, and they're out there. They have a lot of, and then, like I said, that depends on what kind of property you're buying too. But if you're buying a larger acreage property, there's some full time land agents out there that really know what they're doing. But that somebody with a bunch of experience still might not be as helpful as a young person that just really wants to hustle either. So it's really just
Yeah, you
it's
can't beat
case by
hustle
case.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah, can't beat hustle sometimes. So before we talk about um before we talk about some of the things you're wanting to get into, tell me this, when it comes to due diligence on land, any just tips for people? Like, hey, when you're looking at a piece of land, what are some of the first things that you pay attention to make sure it's not like are there any deal killers? I guess is my question.
yeah, a ton of them.
Okay, a ton of
Everywhere
them.
from the neighbors to the type of timber on the property, flood flood zone. Um, People pay a lot of attention to flood zone and wetlands, even though it doesn't always mean a whole lot of anything. People love a creek property, or like a riverfront property, or some kind of waterfront, and it's of course it's going to have wetlands and floodland if you're that close to water. So that shouldn't always scare somebody from buying something. Um, Another thing is access. A lot
Mhm.
of land has either real junky access or no access, so
I
you have
mean,
to actually
from a street.
from a road, like a county
Yeah.
road or a city road. Um,
Which is important because like, hey, if it's landlocked, it can diminish the value,
yes,
or it could cost a lot of money to unlandlock it.
yeah, and you can do that, but
It just
yeah,
takes
like you
effort.
said, it
Yeah.
takes effort and brain cells and money.
Yeah. I think here in the South, I think the wetlands part, those things, are important to understand
Yeah,
because mitigation for that is expensive. It can deter some of your exit strategies, you know. But what type of land do you mostly deal with? So you don't deal with infill lots.
yeah, just larger recreational tracks.
What do you
I've
mean
done
by
a
recreational?
so hunting. Maybe somebody wants to put a mobile home on 20 acres, like that. That's what I would consider just like a large home site or timberland. I've been doing a lot of wholesaling to timber companies, so I'll find something in middle Mississippi or Louisiana that's got 30-year-old timber on it, and I'll take that and shop it to the timber guys who are going to either buy it, cut it, and hold on to it, or they buy it, cut it, and resell it. Uh,
So they make their money on the timber and then they resell the land because the land was just a means to an end for them.
yeah, well, a lot of some of these companies are big enough to where they hold that, and they'll
And
they'll
they let it
replant it
replant.
and
Yeah.
pine or whatever, and in 30 years they'll do it again.
Interesting.
And then there's some people that will buy, cut the timber, subdivide, and then resell. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. So, all right, let's kind of talk through some more. What would you say is the hard part in the land business for you? Um, you know, yeah, it sounds great, but not every, it's not all sunshine and roses.
Yeah. So it's kind of like I feel like I kind of have a realtor lifestyle a little bit to where my phone's always ringing, and now it's helped when I hired an assistant and acquisitions manager, but still, like a lot of my dispositions is on Facebook or with just calls to people in our network. So it's just kind of always being on the phone.
Hmm.
I'm locked in my office basically by myself for 4 to 6 hours a day, and I feel like that I miss that about construction work. You'd get to the job site in the morning, you'd be like, talking shop with the guys, and it's like a camaraderie. And then this misses, it's pretty lonely. So it's nice when you can get together with real, other real estate investors or
Yeah.
people specifically. And I try to, I tried to go to a few different land conferences this year, and I'm actually going to Italy in October for a land conference with 8 other land guys, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
And like masterminding
Yeah,
together. Yeah. Look, I love that because I mean, at the end of the day, you're right. Sometimes this journey can be tough because we're just putting our head down, getting to work, and it's like, but it's n- there's nothing new underneath the sun. There's other people who are going through this too, so it helps
yeah,
to talk through that. Hey, what's working for you guys, or hey, I'm having this issue. Can you guys help? And whether it's just talking through it or problem solving or whatever.
yeah. And people from the outside, they see you made $20,000 on something, and they're like, "Oh, that must be nice," but they don't realize like
What
all
it
the
takes to get
failed
there.
opportunity or like all the failed attempts at buying something, and and I do feel like I'm very grateful for the situation I'm in now because you've walked outside. Like I sweat just trying to go get my like mail out of the mailbox. So I'm so happy I'm not out there digging trenches for pipes and climbing around in people's attics, and it's
Sure.
much better than that.
Absolutely. So what would you say you're focusing? Let's kind of talk about like what are you focusing on right now as here we are, we're ending out 2024. What's some of your main focuses? And then I want to talk about what you're going to be focusing on next.
My main focus is like tax avoidance because I got destroyed last year because I went wholesale happy, and I'll just I
So active income. Yeah,
yeah,
active
active income.
income is what my gray haired guys, one of the biggest things they talked to me about was source of income matters. It's not just that you want income, it's where does that income come from? Because Uncle Sam penalizes you when
Yeah.
it comes from certain areas.
Well, your podcast has been helping a lot with that. I've listened to all 16 episodes so far, and
Yeah. Well,
it's
thank you.
cool to hear the other side of it because I like for the longest time I've only listened to land podcast, and it's nice to hear the creative. Um, I mean, just all the creative stuff that you guys do. I feel like it's really going to help me in the long run be able to tackle some of these larger deals, especially when the market dries up a little bit. Right now, you can still find some deals for land that you can do traditional buy for 50%, sell for 85%, and like that's really good returns for 99% of people out there. But as that dries up and
Meaning
people,
people aren't buying land as much or something,
yeah,
or
people aren't buying land as much, and then sellers still want high prices, so that it's
so
just
it's
condensed.
squeezed on both sides.
Yeah, but if you get creative, there's still a million different ways you can skin the cat
Sure.
there.
Sure.
I really think that there's opportunity to buy on owner finance and sell on owner finance and just be that,
Mhm.
just wrap,
Yeah.
a handful of properties and make a few $100 a month per property.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. So what do you think you're going to be shifting your focus to? You're mentioning some of the bigger things you're looking.
Yeah, a lot of it's subdividing. I think subdividing's great. It's hard to, you don't find those deals all the time because it's got to kind of be the perfect storm of big enough road frontage, the demand in the area.
Yeah.
So just as an example, I recently put 45 acres in Lucedale, Mississippi under contract. It is cotton farm, so it's pretty much cleared.
Yeah.
Um, Now, I didn't know this at first, but I have to let that farmer harvest his cotton at the end of October before I can like take ownership of it. But all I did, I put it
He's
under
like, I need to
contract.
get one more time.
Yeah. Well, he spent all year. So technically, I don't know how relative this is going to be to your audience, but technically, if the farmer plants the crop, that's his personal property. It doesn't matter what you do with the
So
property.
title could transfer and he could still come back and get his
Yes.
personal
Yes.
property at the end of October. Got
Right.
it. I mean,
So
hey, but it's the nuances. So many people like to jump strategies
yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to go into land and then houses and this." But like little things like that, by you have really put the blinders on and you have really specialized in land, and it's little things like this that you've learned
Yeah.
because you're, a mile deep in land.
Yeah. And I'm kind of a ready, aim, fire guy or ready, fire, aim guy.
Sure.
Yeah. Um,
So you might have had to learn it the hard way, but nonetheless you've learned it. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I'm like an action taker. I'd rather just start doing something and then figure out the direction versus trying
Sure.
to pre-plan everything because I'll never get started. But that property in Lucedale, it's on two different sides of the street. There's 20 acres on one side, 25 acres on one side. I think I cut 5 3-acre parcels out of it and then 3 10-acre parcels out of it. And I haven't closed on it yet. Um, but I've already got 6 of those 8 parcels sold off.
Mhm.
So as soon as I'm able to close on it, I can close those other 6, and I'll actually profit probably 25 grand on it, and then I'll have 2 parcels off that are going to be worth um, about 100,000 that I'll be able to owner finance out for
Yeah.
6 years or
And
whatever.
that'll take you over your 10 grand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
That's awesome, man. So, well, I've loved the conversation. So let's start to land the plane here. So, what is one lesson that you wish you would have learned sooner?
The the benefits of uh, just some way to avoid so much tax. I mean, I wrote a check for $175,000 to the IRS last year, and it like put me in a depression for like 2 weeks. I didn't even want to work.
Look,
So
I have secondhand depression for you, my friend, and your house friends. We have some benefits for you. So,
yes, and
and
that's why I listen to your podcast because I realized like, yeah, I do hate rentals. I hate when I get a phone call from my property manager because someone lost a fan remote or just like the
Mhm.
dumbest stuff. And it's like, God, I'm taken away from my land business where I can make, $700,000 a year to go deal with this property that's making me $250 a month. And it like melts my brain to even think about dealing with that. But I realize it's a whole different side of it. It's more
it's a
for
different benefit.
depreciation
Yeah.
versus and appreciation.
Yeah.
Um,
Look, depreciation is one of the number one benefits that my houses give me. My rentals don't do anything to my income today,
yeah,
except for the depreciation, the amortization, the pay down of the loan, and any appreciation.
yeah,
Anything else, like the ability to leverage it, cash flow, like literally cash flow is last on the list. It's like
yeah,
something that's barely even a blip on my radar. It's all those other benefits that really help. Um, and so I hear that. A lot of times people are like, "Hey, I just wanna only do land because it's not tenants, it's not, roofs, ACs, all that hassle
yeah,
with everything." But obviously it's hard because land you can't depreciate land. And so that becomes the hard part. And Uncle Sam, again, he knows how to penalize us, and so we're always just trying to, like, stay away from how he penalizes us.
yes,
And so, all right, let's talk back to, so you're going through that. So and you're going to be focused on. So you and I have started looking at doing some land deals together, and so I'm looking forward to that because land is one of those things where I've done a lot over the years. I've done with some larger parcels, and it's just something that I am, whether it's a note portfolio that I build out, whether it's that we do some flips or some assignments with it, some subdivides, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to some of the projects you and I have going on and some more. But if folks, and I'll say this, Chris, I've appreciate you're an operator, like you're a guy who, you're tactical with how you approach this, and you're out there, you're making moves, you are an action taker. So, and I've appreciated that. I've always, when I see that, I say, hey man, how can I line up with someone who's an action taker? And so, as we start to land this, what is the best way for people, to get in touch with you?
Yeah, either Facebook or I could leave my email in the show notes.
Sure.
But it's just Chris at bnlandsolutions.com.
Got it. And so, and then we'll make sure that that is in the show notes. And then I'll also put your Facebook. So, and it's Chris
Okay,
Johnson with an E,
that's right.
not an O, because
Yep.
I have a Chris Johnson with an O in my phone, who's a senator out of Mississippi that I try to not text on accident when I'm texting you.
Yeah.
So, well, great, man. It was a pleasure talking with you. It's always fun to have conversations or when we go play pickleball together or whatever.
Yes.
So, thanks for
Yes.
coming on, man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me.
Sure thing.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm sorry about my my wild as hell dog up there.